Tip at a restaurant. In the United States, not leaving a tip at a restaurant is a big deal. It's a custom here to tip the server as a way of saying thank you for their service. Not tipping can be seen as disrespectful and can make the server feel unappreciated. It's important to remember to leave a tip when dining out in the US. Pointing directly at someone, especially their chest, is universally considered rude and provocative in many places around the world. It's considered impolite and can even be seen as confrontational or aggressive. Instead, it's better to gesture with an open hand or use a nod to indicate someone's direction. Discussing earnings. Talking about how much money you earn is often seen as a big taboo in the UK. It's considered private information, and bringing it up in conversation can make people feel uncomfortable. It's generally best to avoid discussing earnings unless it's with close friends or family members in a very specific context, like seeking financial advice. Homosexuality. Homosexuality can be considered a cultural taboo in some countries, but it varies depending on where you are. In some places, it's widely accepted and celebrated, while in others, it's strictly off-limits and even illegal. It's important to be aware of the cultural attitudes and laws regarding homosexuality in different countries to avoid inadvertently causing offense or putting oneself in danger. Eating with left hand. Eating with your left hand can be seen as a cultural taboo in some countries, but it varies depending on where you are. In many cultures, the left hand is considered unclean, so using it to handle food or eat can be viewed as disrespectful or unsanitary. Stick to the right hand. It's the polite choice. It's important to be mindful of local customs and practices when dining in different parts of the world. Shoes indoors. Wearing shoes indoors is often considered a cultural taboo in both Japan and some Middle Eastern countries. In these cultures, it's customary to remove your shoes before entering a home or certain indoor spaces as a sign of respect and cleanliness. Wearing shoes indoors can be seen as bringing dirt, germs, or negative energy into the space. Whistling at night. It is considered a cultural taboo in both Russia and Turkey. In these countries, there are superstitions that believe whistling at night can attract evil spirits or bad luck. It's believed to disturb the peace of the night and can be seen as disrespectful to the spirits or even as a signal for misfortune. So, keep your tunes to daylight hours. Touching head. In Thailand, touching someone's head is considered a cultural taboo. The head is seen as the most sacred part of the body, and touching it is considered disrespectful and invasive. This taboo stems from Buddhist beliefs, where the head is believed to be the highest and most spiritually significant part of the body. Therefore, it's important to avoid touching someone's head in Thailand to show respect for their culture and beliefs. Burping. Burping is considered a cultural taboo in both China and India. In these countries, burping loudly, especially in public or during a meal, is seen as rude and disrespectful. It's considered impolite because it disrupts the atmosphere and shows a lack of consideration for others around you. In both Chinese and Indian cultures, it's important to maintain proper manners and etiquette, which includes avoiding loud or disruptive bodily noises like burping. Discussing death. This can be a cultural taboo in many societies around the world. In some cultures, it's considered uncomfortable or even disrespectful to talk openly about death, especially in casual conversation. This taboo often stems from a fear of the unknown, superstitions, or religious beliefs surrounding death and the afterlife. People may avoid discussing death to prevent causing sadness or discomfort. However, attitudes towards discussing death can vary greatly depending on cultural norms and individual beliefs. Eating while standing. It is considered a cultural taboo in Indonesia. In Indonesian culture, meals are often seen as a time for gathering, socializing, and showing respect for the food being served. Eating while standing is considered disrespectful to the food and to the host, as it suggests a lack of appreciation for the meal. It's customary to sit down while eating in Indonesia as a sign of respect for the food and the company you're sharing it with. Wearing red in a funeral. Avoiding wearing red to a funeral is a cultural taboo in both China and Korea. In these cultures, red is associated with happiness, celebration, and good fortune, so wearing it to a funeral would be inappropriate and disrespectful. Instead, mourners typically wear somber colors like black, white, or gray to show respect for the deceased and their family. Chewing gum in public. This can be considered a cultural taboo in some places like Austria, Italy, Germany, Malaysia. This is because it's often seen as rude or disrespectful. especially if done loudly or with your mouth open. Additionally, discarded gum can create a mess and be difficult to clean up. In certain cultures, chewing gum in public spaces like public transportation, museums, or religious sites may be frowned upon as it can be seen as a lack of manners or consideration for others. Public nudity. It is widely considered a cultural taboo in many societies around the world. It involves exposing one's body, particularly the genitals, breasts, or buttocks, in public spaces where such exposure is not socially acceptable. This taboo is rooted in cultural norms, moral values, and legal regulations that dictate appropriate behavior in public settings. While some cultures embrace it, such as certain European beaches, others strictly prohibit it. Public displays of affection. They are often considered a cultural taboo in India, in many parts of Indian society, particularly in more conservative or traditional communities. Public expressions of romantic affection such as kissing, hugging, or holding hands can be viewed as inappropriate or offensive. Couples are generally expected to refrain from engaging in overt displays of affection while in public in order to respect societal norms and avoid causing discomfort or offense to others. It's advisable to keep physical affection private. Using chopsticks incorrectly. It is considered a cultural taboo in Japan and Korea. Chopsticks are an essential utensil in these cultures, and there are specific rules and customs associated with their usage. Failing to hold or handle chopsticks properly can be seen as disrespectful and uncultured. For example, stabbing food with chopsticks, pointing them at others, or passing food directly from one set of chopsticks to another are all considered rude or inappropriate behaviors. Whistling indoors? It is considered a cultural taboo in both Russia and Lithuania. In these countries, there are superstitions that believe whistling indoors can attract bad luck or evil spirits. It's seen as disrupting the peace and harmony of the home, and some even believe it can bring financial troubles. Therefore, it's best to avoid whistling indoors in Russia and Lithuania to avoid any potential negative consequences or offending others. Pointing feet at others. Pointing your feet at others is considered a cultural taboo in Thailand. In Thai culture, the feet are considered the lowest and dirtiest part of the body, both physically and spiritually. Therefore, pointing your feet at someone, especially when sitting or lying down, is seen as extremely disrespectful. It's important to keep your feet tucked away or pointed downward as a sign of respect when in Thailand. Discussing personal problems. Talking about personal problems openly is not common in Japan. People prefer to keep their issues to themselves rather than sharing them with others. This is because Japanese society values harmony and saving face. So, discussing personal problems openly can be seen as disrupting that harmony or causing embarrassment. Instead, people often deal with their problems privately or seek help from close friends or family members. Interrupting elders. It is a cultural taboo in many countries around the world. In various cultures, there's a strong emphasis on showing respect to older individuals by allowing them to speak without interruption. Interrupting elders can be seen as disrespectful and rude, as it disregards their wisdom, experience, and authority. Instead, it is best to listen attentively and wait for an appropriate opportunity to contribute to the conversation. Using first names. In many formal settings, such as professional environments or when addressing elders, using someone's first name without their permission can be considered disrespectful or overly familiar. Instead, it's customary to use titles or last names as a sign of respect. Address them by their title, Mr., Mrs., Doctor, until invited to use their first name. Kotodama. Kotodama is a Japanese belief that words have spiritual power or energy. It's considered a cultural taboo to speak negatively or use harsh language because it's believed that doing so can attract negative energy or karma. Instead, people are encouraged to use kind and respectful words to maintain harmony and positivity. Hara Hachi Bu. Hara Hachi Bu is a cultural practice in Japan that emphasizes eating until you are 80% full. It's not exactly a taboo, but rather a traditional way of eating that promotes moderation and mindful eating habits. By following the principle of Hara Hachi Bu, people aim to prevent overeating and maintain a healthy balance in their diet. Haram. Haram refers to things that are considered forbidden or sinful in Islamic culture. These could include actions, behaviors, or items that are prohibited by Islamic law, such as consuming pork, consuming alcohol, or engaging in dishonesty or theft. Violating these prohibitions can have serious spiritual consequences and may result in punishment in the afterlife. Therefore, avoiding haram is a fundamental aspect of practicing Islam and living a devout life according to Islamic beliefs. Jesa. It is a traditional Korean ritual held to honor ancestors. During Jesa, offerings of food and drink are made to the spirits of deceased ancestors as a sign of respect and gratitude for their guidance and blessings. Failing to perform Jesa or showing disrespect during the ritual can be seen as dishonoring one's ancestors and may bring bad luck or misfortune, according to Korean cultural beliefs. Nazar. In Turkish culture, this refers to the belief in the evil eye. The concept of Nazar suggests that envy or jealousy from others can cause harm or misfortune to a person or their possessions. To protect against the evil eye, Turks often use talismans or amulets and perform rituals to ward off negative energy.